What's up, guys? It's your boy, the Big Mac, Lay Big Mac 1985. I'm back. Apologies that this video is late due to a previous obligation I had on Saturday evening and internet outage. This video is being posted today, not yesterday, as was previously promised. This is my Cyberpunk 2077 review. I'm not going to bother with any game clips or anything else because everyone on YouTube has reviewed Cyberpunk. The big guys, the small guys, everyone has. And unfortunately, the general consensus seems to be that the game is bad. Well, I'm not going to go with the general consensus here. Alright? So, first off, let's start with the problems, because that's obvious, and you guys have heard it from everyone else, so I'm going to keep it very short and sweet and simple and say this. We, the fans, the gamers, are to blame for this. Now, some people have said this. Some people pointed out that when CD Projekt Red said, "Hey, we're delaying the game. We've taken such a big project on because we're trying to do this for current gen consoles and next gen consoles and PC and everything. And this thing is huge. We want to make sure that it works. We're taking extra time." A lot of fans are like, "Oh, we don't care. We want it now. We've been waiting so long." When the trailer first dropped all those years ago, we were just gobsmacked by how beautiful this thing looked. We were intrigued by the announcement of what it was, this big open world narrative, this the intricacy of the potential gameplay, everything that they promised to deliver on, and we're like, we want it now. And so when they initially delayed it, people were upset, and other people were like, well, okay, you want to make sure it works fine. But then they released it anyway. And clearly the game was not as ironed out and fleshed out and debugged as I think everyone would have liked it to be. I did pre-order Cyberpunk 2077. I played it, I think, the day or after it dropped, actually. Downloaded and everything else. I had other things going on. Doctor's appointments and such because of my broken leg. But it was fun. But the moment we started having gameplay issues, the moment that there started to be glitches and bugs that were game-breaking, everyone was up in arms. They were dropping soft patches almost from day one because of this, because they knew that there were problems. When you look at the history of incredibly popular video games, especially games that over time became increasingly popular after their initial release, as DLCs, as bug fixes became available, you realize that these games really were, at their foundation, at their core, incredible games. But peripheral problems, fundamental problems, integration issues were not fully fleshed out. Two games that come to mind very pointedly for me in comparing Cyberpunk 2077 is Fallout New Vegas and Skyrim. Now, Fallout New Vegas, at its foundation, is a brilliant game. It's an incredibly intricate game. The faction system and the karma system, the way that that's multi-layered and they have different aspects, is brilliant. The combat was a huge leap forward from Fallout 3. There was a lot of refinement and expansion on that. But of course, anyone who played Fallout New Vegas, especially on 360, knows that there were still some problems. You had instances where the game would crash. You had instances where the game would glitch out horribly. You had instances where the game was just not behaving correctly. Then come the DLCs. Then come fixes. Then come patches. Then come things that helped iron out a lot of those problems. Now, on 360, of course, because of how expansive the game was, even though it wasn't graphically challenging, it was pretty, it wasn't subpar, but it was very average as far as the graphics go. There were fixes. As each DLC dropped, then problems started going away. Now, I was fortunate to get the Ultimate Edition, and the big trick on 360 which was when I first played Fallout New Vegas, was you got it, you got the DLC, you got the Ultimate Edition, and then you downloaded the game and all the DLC onto your hard drive, and then you ran it with the disc. That pretty much guaranteed the game wasn't going to crash unless you really, really were pushing the game engine and the 360's horsepower to the limit in certain encounters. If you had it on survival mode or hardcore mode, whatever you want to call it, and got into a situation where you had a lot of different enemies in one spot that you were having to fight, and maybe you had 2 companions with you, it could still freeze, it could still lag, it could still crash, you could still have massive glitches, but for the most part, those problems went away. Skyrim, when it first dropped, had some problems. Once the DLC started coming out, a lot of those problems went away, but not all of them, because Bethesda is Bethesda, and I don't have to explain further. If you've played any Bethesda game in the last 20 years, you know exactly what I mean. But then the final edition, special edition, ultimate edition, whatever you want to call it, of Skyrim dropped. Mods support was added for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Most of those problems went away. Just like those 2 games, just like a number of other games that fall into that category, the bones of Cyberpunk 2077 are incredible. The story is straightforward but well thought out. The characterization is brilliant. The voice acting is top shelf. The music is on point. The aesthetic is perfect. Aspects of the gameplay are actually quite brilliant. They're not terribly innovative or cutting edge or groundbreaking necessarily, but they work. The integration, unfortunately, isn't as good as it could be. The driving aspect of the game is still simplistic, straightforward, and a little frustrating. The combat, I think, is actually quite good for the most part, though some of the special aspects of it, the integration, the interface is not, I think, as well fleshed as it could be, and I think part of that is because the game is meant to be played on PC, and when you're making a game and you put it on console and it's really meant to be played on PC, because you have a limited number of buttons, because you have, these issues, controller versus mouse and keyboard, you're going to run into some minor integration issues. Now, as I understand it, and if I'm wrong, please tell me if you know differently or whatever, you can do a lot of games mouse and keyboard on Xbox, and Cyberpunk 2077 is supposed to be one of them. I know, like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, mouse and keyboard support. If you get a USB system for that, you can plug that into your Xbox and use it just fine. Cool. I don't really bother with that. I've debated on it, and I've decided not to. As it stands, foundationally, Cyberpunk 2077 is, I think, a great game. It has its problems. These problems are being addressed. I think a lot of the flack that CD Projekt Red has taken since its drop, some of it obviously is warranted. They should have delayed it, I think, another 6 months or however long they needed to get a lot of these problems that they've had out of the way beforehand. That said, they promised a product, they promised it at a certain time, they didn't quite deliver on time, and there was pressure to get the product out the door. And I understand that. It is a business. But let's really look at the positives of this game. Let's really look at what this game does and accomplishes. Like all good sci-fi, it really questions what it means to be human. It makes you think and consider your humanity, what makes you you. It provokes, I think, to those who are willing to devote the time and energy to it. It provokes a lot of questions and some introspection. If you're really deep into games like that, where you want to role play, say, all right, this is my character, and what have you, the different backstories you can choose for your character, the different choices, what kind of moral or ethical choices you might make in the moment. The fact that it's not straight black and white. that there are questions of, well, if I do this, this is good, but there's a consequence for that. Or if I do this, this is bad, and I gain something, but it costs someone else something, and this may come back and bite me in the ass later down the road. Those sorts of questions I think good games ask, and have been for a while, through the lens of sci-fi, through the lens of, has technology gone too far? Will technology go too far? How far do we take this thing? At what point do we start mortgaging elemental parts of our humanity against ourselves for gain, and is it worth it? I think that is ultimately very well done. I think that is ultimately a very well packaged story. Obviously, Keanu Reeves is a beast, and he kills this part as Johnny Silverhand. The evolution of kind of this ghost in the machine, this echo of a personality given a second chance, and how he evolves, how the relationship between himself and your character V changes and evolves and progresses. I think it's very brilliant. I think some of the choices that you are presented with, the different side missions and interactions you have with all these folks in Night City, I think that it is, I can't say enough good things about that. It's one of the better aspects of the game. It's one of the better games in that regard specifically that I've played or seen or heard of in a very long time. There is a level of depth to the game in regards to the emotions it evokes, in regards to the investment that it asks and earns from the player, that I think is very, very good. And, the whole video games as art concept has been... it's a big-ass spider. What the hell? Sorry. I think that has been addressed very well by this game, and I think it's been done quite brilliantly. And I for one, think that it is a good game. The bones of it are incredible. The foundation, the core of the game, the concepts, the things that really matter insofar as story and narrative go, I think that they knocked it out of the park. I think where they obviously dropped the ball is some of the troubleshooting and some of the bugs that they had, some of the issues of integration they didn't really address properly. But I think that as time goes on and they keep dropping updates and soft patches and upgrades for it, that will go away. The rumored DLC that's supposed to drop at some point this year, allegedly, I think is going to fix whatever problems remain by the time it does drop. And I would be interested to see, I would be very interested to see where that goes. I have not 100%ed the game just yet. I'm most of the way through the main story. I'm coming up on, I think, one of the last major aspects of it. I'm not going to give anything away for any of you who may not have played it and are on the fence or are like, well, everyone says it's terrible, I'm not going to play it. I think that it is a good game. I think that if you haven't played it and you've been curious and you've kind of been dissuaded by everything you've heard, go ahead and pick it up. If you're looking for a new game to pick up, if you're looking for something to kill some time or something different or new, pull the trigger, do it. It is well worth the price of admission, especially now that they fixed a lot of the major bugs. I held off playing it for a couple months because they kept dropping updates. It's like every couple weeks I'd turn on my Xbox and say, oh, Cyberpunk 2077 is updating. All right, good. They're fixing problems. I'm getting ready to go back to it. I'm getting ready to go back and play it some more and have some fun with it. Once I finish my initial playthrough, I'll go back and I will do another playthrough, and I will have clips, and I may even do a whole thing on stream when I get up and running on Twitch here in the next week or two. I may just do a thing where I'll play Cyberpunk for about an hour or so and stream that, and just walk you through it. So I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. Ultimately, because yes, the problems it had were very problematic, where things would glitch and you'd be in the middle of a mission and you wouldn't complete it because it would not load correctly. I've been in it where in the middle of driving from point A to point B, the game would just freeze and crash. I've had those problems, and it's immensely frustrating. But when the game does work, even on Xbox Series 1S, which is what I have a 1S, which is, kind of the mid to lower range Xbox One. The game looks incredible. I know a lot of trailer footage was shown on PC where they're running, true to life 4K, and the lighting and everything is just fucking brilliant. But even on lower end machines, even without all of the glossiness of it, it still looks good. It has a great aesthetic. It has a great feel. The lighting is actually pretty good. The colors, the architecture, the car design, the weapon design, the clothing design, freaking awesome. Uh, it's on point any way you look at it. It just doesn't always deliver what you expect and what you want, because I think of the technical limitations that they've had to overcome, and because of the troubleshooting that they needed to do and they didn't do. Excuse me. So all that said, I think that it is a good game. I do think it's worth the price of admission. Um, Obviously disappointing that they dropped the ball on some things and that they did rush the release. I think they bit off a little more than they could chew, and they got real close to doing it, but they pulled the trigger too soon. And I think part of that is in fact the fault of the fans. Obviously, also partly the fault of the corporate overlords demanding things be kept to a schedule, um, which it is a business, so there's going to be an element of that you can never get away from, and I get it. But it is disappointing when you see something that ultimately should have been brilliant beyond all measure and arguably a perfect game, as if there is such a thing, falling on its face the way it did because of problems, because of rushed development, and because of unforeseen difficulties that weren't fully addressed. It's not the ideal trade-off, but it's one I personally am willing to make. So let me know what you think if you've played the game or you're curious about the game or whatever, if you agree or disagree, or if you might put it differently or however. Let me know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button if you really enjoy what's going on here. If you want more content, I will be releasing another compilation here, probably in about 2 weeks or less. I've got the clips gathered. I'm in the process of editing them together and stringing it together. I'm looking for some background music I can put underneath it. I'm going to be putting up some GTA clips, I think, next. Some Grand Theft Auto, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be something a little bit different. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this. This has been the Caleb Mack, Back 1985. Stay frosty.